Hey, I'm looking through the window and she's hitting my child against the head.
Look here, you won't come here and be a good.
This video showing an aggressive man confronting an enraged woman at a local spur on Human Rights Day has raised the ire of South Africans. The altercation was allegedly sparked by their children fighting in the Glen Spur's playpen. The altercation took a turn for the worst when the angry man threatened the woman with violence. At one point, the man shook the table that at the time had children seated around it. The woman did not back down, however, explaining to media outlets that she wanted to protect the children left in her charge. The incident sparked outrage on social media, with people victim blaming the woman for enraging the man, while others pointed a finger at the woman for not being able to control her children.
So when I watched the video, I was really upset because I'm a father, I'm a parent to a child, and I want my daughter to grow up in a world where she feels safe. I also felt like I'm not that guy, that's not me. But at the same time, I am that guy because I'm a white guy, I'm a man, and I'm also Afrikaans, and I come from a similar history. So I felt a lot of discomfort about who I am and who that guy is. I work for Sonke, I'm committed to preventing violence, but I share a lot of similarities with this guy. So I thought that I really want to give a message to the world out there about how one can think about power and violence in a way that you can reduce it or prevent it. So for me, this video really was a case study in violence. It showed power, and power is relational. There's always a difference in the one with more power and the one with less power. And if you can make that difference a bit more equal, there's less likelihood of violence, in my interpretation. So I'd like to identify 4 dimensions of power, or 4 power differences. Some have been spoken a lot in social media, some have not been spoken about. And also from Sonke Gender Justice's side, I want to offer the alternative, the better world that could have happened to avoid an incident like this. So the first dimension is gender. It's a man attacking a woman and using his masculinity as a source of power. He also feels quite entitled that he's able to do that as a man. I see it in my circle of friends around me all the time, and it really makes me angry that men are so comfortable with the space they claim and the power they carry without thinking that there are other people around them that they could perhaps have some relation to. It's just this socialization of men stepping into the space that was created for them by society. And I think it's time to change that. So I think in terms of gender, it was interesting to see that the man's partner, his wife, was with him. So if they had maybe approached the black woman together, or he had asked his wife to join the conversation, there would have immediately have been more of a gender balance in the conversation. It was more about him asserting his power than it was about actually finding a solution. So in terms of gender, that's the first difference in power. The second one is very clearly about race. It's a white person attacking a black person. Again, the same experience of entitlement, and it's a white man. So the masculinity and the race reinforce each other. The group around the table were black people. There were more other black people in the restaurant, but it was quite clear that this man was very unconscious of the racial entitlement and the racial power that he carries. So in this instance, I also heard him, especially when he was getting very aggressive, going into Afrikaans. And again, as an Afrikaans man, I have to take responsibility for being aware of the history of that language in this country and what that means to black people in South Africa and how I manage that. So going into Afrikaans when you're getting aggressive brings up all kinds of moments from the past when Afrikaans was a part of the apartheid state. So in this instance, if he had stuck to English, or even better, if they had found a different language which was closer to her, he might have been closer to finding a solution. But he stuck to English, and then in moments of aggression he used Afrikaans. So, and I do match the language with race. White Afrikaans power versus black subordination came through really clearly. So that's the second dimension. The first one is gender, the second one is race. The third one is age. And I think this one we don't often think about as a difference in power. But when I say the difference in age, I mean the children around the table. The man did not seem very interested in what the children were feeling or what they were thinking. He didn't ask the children. He was very much, again, trying to assert his power. And I think it becomes quite clear if you think about violence, that violence is not a random loss of control. It's a long-term strategy by the powerful to keep the subordinate in place. And he was trying to keep those around him in place. And clearly they weren't up to that. So in the dimension of children, I think what he could have done is maybe ask the children what was going on for them, or ask his child to speak to the other child with support of the adults. Involve the children rather than try and react and assert his power again, which then escalated to violence. So that's the third level, is age. So we have gender, race and age. And then the fourth one was quite obvious, it's his size. I'm a man, I'm a white Afrikaans man, but I'm also quite big. And I've learned in South Africa to, not just in South Africa, but in society, to be aware of the size that I have in relation to people around me. Especially because with our history, we have these layers of power. We have gender, we have race, we have all these other kinds of messages telling us that the one is more powerful than the other. So, a very simple step that one can do if you are a big person is actually just to drop down to the person who you are talking to's level. It would immediately put you at the same level of talking. The woman was sitting when the conversation started, he was standing, and immediately he placed himself in a position of power. If he had just dropped down, it would have been an opportunity for more of an equal conversation.